This is the Sick'em Podcast, presented by your friend in the car business, Alan Samuels Dodge Chrysler Jeep Ram Fiat in Waco. Online at alansamuelsdcj.com. The Sick'em Podcast is a production of Baylor Athletics. Now, here are your hosts, Brooke Bednarz and the voice of the Bears, John Morris.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to this week's Sick'em Podcast, a production of Baylor Athletics. Glad to have you with us. John Morris, Brooke Bednarz hosting today. And, Brooke, we've got a full show. I started to say an hour. Depends on how long we get going, but a full podcast today. We're going to lead off with Drew Pittman, Associate AD for Event Management and Facilities. And then a little bit later, we're going to bring in two former Baylor greats who will be part of our pregame tailgate show we've got on television and radio. Yeah. And we got a game to get ready for this Saturday. So this is fun. This is a big week.
This is a big week, and I'm very excited to have everybody on and just talk about the reality that is having a game this week.
It is Baylor and the University of Houston on Saturday, and looking forward to that at McLean Stadium. But we begin and bring in our good friend Drew Pittman, as I said, Associate AD for Event Management and Facilities, on staff here at Baylor since 2005. And welcome to you, first off.
Thank you, John.
Appreciate you being here. You know, that title is kind of a title, but if we were to try to encompass everything you do in a title, it wouldn't fit on a business card.
Yeah, I generally, when somebody asks me what I do and they say, what's the the Associate Athletic Director for Event Management Facilities do? I say, it's the Associate Athletic Director for other stuff. Whatever isn't encompassed somewhere else, we take care of it there.
And there's a lot of that, especially this year.
Sure.
I want to get your thoughts on that, some of the differences that we'll see as we go into the start of this athletic school year. But want to get some of your background first. You graduated from Baylor. Brooke, I don't know if you know, communications major. Drew
so this is perfect.
I know, exactly. He could have hosted his own podcast. And from there to NBC New York. How was that experience?
Yeah, I spent my last semester in New York interning at NBC, and that was a great experience. It's amazing, and for a Texas boy to live in New York City for 6 or 7 months was quite the experience. But it was great, and it was a neat time to be there. It was 2004, I guess, and so a lot of neat things happening. Did a little NASCAR coverage for them and a bunch of other stuff, but it was a neat place to be.
Yep.
But I fit back here in Waco a little better, so I hightailed it back.
I remember one of our trips to the NIT championships up there in New York. You were a very good tour guide for us, kind of showing us the way around New York City.
Yeah, it's that's my. I think I've been back a number of times, and I love to go back because it is a really neat place to be. But those two NIT trips were both great because Nick Joes, who was the sport administrator for basketball at the time, both times he said, "Hey, you want to go to New York?" And I was like, "Absolutely,
absolutely." That's great. And so from there, what was the process? What was the path that led you to what you're doing now?
So I had worked in event management and facilities as an undergrad, primarily doing special events at the Farrell Center. And I like to tell people that I'm normally one of the most unathletic people working in the athletic department. Like, I have no clear pathway to working in college athletics, especially not at this level. But I came back in August or September, and my plan was to go to grad school. But I was a little too late. Obviously, classes already started, so I was like, you know what, I'll hang out here and wait and start in January or something like that. And Clint Musselwhite was working over at the Farrell Center, working in event management facilities, and I'd worked for him, like I said, and he said, "Hey, just come. We've got some work we need. You can work for us during football season, and then you can start whatever you want to do." And I guess around November or so, he took a job at the Corpus Christi Hooks and went down there, and so I went into his job and haven't looked back. It's been great.
How have you seen your role? Obviously, it's changed, and you've moved up the chain. But how have you seen your role kind of develop from 2005 to here we are 15 years later, 2020? Obviously, nothing looks the same this year. But overall, how have you seen it grow and develop?
Yeah, we've obviously done a lot of construction in that time period. I think I added it up one day, and it was an unreal amount. But we built this building, Simpson. We built the practice facility over at the Farrell Center. Obviously, the stadium and the track and the bank and Allison Indoor and so on and so forth. So that's really been the biggest change. Obviously, the move, and John, I'm sure you can echo this, but the move from Floyd Casey to McLean was just dramatic.
Mm-hmm.
And even though that was only 6-7 years ago, I guess, it seems like it was yesterday. And that kind of was a big shift for us, really moving things on campus, having all the abilities to engage with people over here. Even though the stadium's on the other side of the river, it's well connected, and it's something where people are engaged every day. And it meant so much to our student athletes because they didn't have to drive across town anymore. I mean, it was just, our football student athletes, when we got the track built over here, our track and field, cross-country student athletes, didn't have to spend so much time in the car every day going across town. And even more true for our golf student athletes. Once we opened the golf facility a few years ago, the Billy, those kids were spending an hour in the car every day just going out to the golf course. So those have been, just huge shifts for us, both in the quality and the caliber of the facilities, but also the quality and the caliber of the student athlete experience, which is what we're, try to improve and really raise every day.
I do want to know, you mentioned your original plan was to come back and go to grad school. Were you going to go to grad school for something like what you're doing now, or was this kind of just a path that was laid out in front of you?
No, I was going to get an MA in communications.
Wow.
So I have the degree at the time was telecommunication. Now it's film and digital media. And I was going to get an MA in communications and do who knows what.
So you really could have been doing our job.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, hosting his own podcast. It could have happened.
Not
sure.
at this level. Sure.
Tell us about your family. Tell everyone listening about your family, Alyssa, and your kids.
Yep.
And that's been fun to watch the growth of your family the last few years.
Alyssa and I have been married for 9 years, and we've got 3 great kids. So when I say their ages and you do the math, you're like, that doesn't make any sense.
Right.
So we have a 17-year-old, Oleg, who's a junior in high school. We have a just newly turned 10-year-old Archer. And then we have a baby, Ellis, who turned 2 in August. And so Oleg and Archer we adopted. They're both from Ukraine. I'm trying to do the math to figure out. We would have adopted Oleg 7-ish years ago, 6.5 years ago, I think.
Okay.
And then Archer about 5 years ago. So they're not different times, not relatives, different sides of the country. Ukraine's about the size of Texas, so think about adopted one kid in Texarkana and the other kid in El Paso.
Okay.
But yeah, quite an experience. So we just Alyssa. I joke on a pretty regular basis that somebody said I read somebody the other day that said it was Tom Hanks had made a quote about his wife, and he said, you get something you don't deserve. And he said, you're bound to win the lottery every once in a while. And obviously that's the situation I found myself in. And Alyssa and her family, they have a huge heart for everything. And that was just something that she told me really early on when we were dating. She's like, hey, just by the way, I want to adopt kids. And, at that point, Drew was just lucky to be where he was. And he was like, yeah, sure. Whatever you want to do. Absolutely.
Yes.
Okay. But yeah, we adopted Oleg and Archer, and we've been off to the races. So we started, instead of having a baby, we started with a 11-year-old, which is just a whole different experience. Yeah. And so, but yeah, we're great kids and great family, and it's been fun.
And just make the point, Oleg, not just an 11-year-old when you got him, but he was blind also, and so that's quite a change for a recently married couple.
Yeah, we had a blind 11-year-old. I guess I should clarify.
Yeah.
He's. I'll tell you though, and he goes to Midway, and I think the only reason people know he's blind is because he's like a bull in a china shop through the hallway in the school. And so much so that now, especially with COVID, they let him change classes early. They let him go from class to class early because he would just bump into everybody.
That's funny.
All the way down the hallway. But yeah, he's
very well adjusted, isn't he?
He is. You would, other than that, you really wouldn't know.
Yeah.
And he's a big computer programming and computer science guy, and he's taken 6 AP tests this year. I just had to pay the bill for taking all the AP tests. But yeah, he's a brainiac. So he's a great kid.
And a junior in high school, he'll maybe be at Baylor in a couple of years.
Maybe,
yeah.
Maybe it's a little bit less traditional fall for juniors in high school that would normally go visit a bunch of college campuses. So we're trying to figure out where we visit and where he wants to go. And obviously Baylor's an easy one because we can be in town and do it and navigate it easily.
How would you say your life has changed having started out your family with adoption? A lot of people are very passionate, like you mentioned, Alyssa. We've spoken with some coaches, and they care deeply about, different foster care programs and things of that. But why was it something that, speaking as a father of 2 adopted sons, how do you feel about that?
Yeah, it's amazing. And I'll tell you the thing that so we adopted a 10-year-old, almost 11, and a 5-year-old, and so those are a lot of times what's termed waiting children, because they're just over there waiting, ready to go. And so a lot of people, when they think about adopting, they think about adopting a baby or something like that. And that was maybe the thing that Alyssa was the most passionate about. And then I became eventually, once I figured it all out, and once it made sense to me. But there's just thousands and thousands of children, both domestically and internationally, that fall into that category. They're 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years old, even older. And they need families too. And so it's, that's something that we've been passionate about, try to advocate for some kids in some different places and stuff, and really seen a lot of growth in that area. It's obviously not easy. Adopting a baby is a little more, I don't want to say simple, because we just had a baby 2 years ago, and it's not at all simple. But the attachment process and learning and growing and everything is different. Obviously, adopting a 10-year-old, he has a lot of preconceived notions about how family's going to be, how parents are going to be, what it's going to be like. And so it's just a different experience. And it's not always easy. That's for sure. In the first couple of years were pretty rough, but we got to a really good place, and Oleg, it's probably, it's a lot more him than us probably, because he's just a really successful kid and is really driven. He's just really successful, and that drive to be successful with him is so strong. So we joke a lot that somebody will say something about it. Did you ask Oleg about his homework? Or the teacher will send an email home, and it'll say, make sure you ask your student about this or that or whatever. Like, we don't ever have to do that. Like, Oleg comes home and he's this or that or whatever about class, or I did horribly on this test. What am I going to do? Well, did you get your grade? No, I'm going to get my grade tomorrow. And then the next day, what'd you make on that test? I made a 99.
Horrible, 99.
So we give him a hard time. He's his toughest critic, for sure. And so it's, but yeah, it's a different experience. It's fun, but that's the, adoption in general, really broad topic. But then especially when you start talking about waiting kids and older kids and stuff like that, it's just a whole nother avenue of it.
Alyssa is a trooper in many ways, not the least of which was your wedding day. Day you'll remember in a lot of different ways, March 5th, 2011. Wasn't, to have a wedding on that day, that kind of fills up the day, but you had to add quite a bit more on that day also.
So I'm standing this is obviously Floyd Casey Stadium days, and I'm standing, I remember exactly where I was. I'm standing at the top of the south end zone at Floyd Casey Stadium back in the fall. And my supervisor at the time called me, and he said, hey, we've got a hold on this day to not have a basketball game. We put in a hold. The Big 12 surveys you every year and asks, are there any days you need holds on? And we had put in a hold, a facility hold. Do you know why we did that? And I said, well, it's the first weekend of spring break. And from a marketing and fan engagement perspective, we thought we'd have a hard time getting students there to participate. So we were trying to get our last game to be earlier. And then teams would go to Big 12 championship. Students would go to spring break. And he said, oh, okay. He said, well, I think we're going to have a game that day. We're going to play Texas. And I was like, oh, man. And he continues on to say that, and we're going to host ESPN College Game Day for the first time ever. And so I said, and I kind of, okay. And I said, do you remember me telling you that I'm getting married that day too? And he goes, oh yeah. He goes, well, that'll be fun. And
Oh my goodness.
That was the end of the conversation.
Yeah.
So I put my tuxedo on at the Farrell Center and went to Truett, to the Powell Chapel at Truett, and got married. And Bobby is the guy who drives the college game day bus for both basketball and football. And I don't know if he's driving it this year. I don't know how that's all working this year, but he was driving it last year because I saw him when they came to town. And he always, when he sees me, gives me a hard time because he offered to take me from the Farrell Center to Truett in the bus to like drop me off
How
for the
great
wedding.
is that?
And I told him I didn't think Alyssa would necessarily think it was as great as the rest of us would think it was great. But every time Bobby sees me, he asks me about that. Why, Drew? Why didn't you let me take you to the church?
Riding in style.
So, but it was a good day. We I think the wedding was game day would have been over by 9 or 10, and we didn't play till that night. That was a primetime game because Billis stayed and did it with, I can't remember whoever did play-by-play for that game. And I remember driving by the Farrell Center and the Farrell Center being packed, and we're leaving town to go on our honeymoon and thinking, I'm supposed to be there. So, yeah.
That's a memorable day. That is a very memorable day.
That's a long, memorable day.
It was fun.
But thank goodness we were getting married on Baylor campus. That worked out.
Absolutely.
Well, we're going to go to break real quick, but stick around as we come back and continue to talk more about Baylor campus and the upcoming game and how you are making sure everything will be ready for McLean Stadium.
What season is it? It's truck season at Allen Samuels. Ram trucks are raring to go, ready to work and play, and all feature the best deals of the year during Ram Power Days. Come get your brand new Ram Lone Star at Allen Samuels with 0% for 72 and no payments for 90 days. Or choose up to $9,250 in bonus cash and incentives. Ram, the highest pickup owner loyalty in America. Shop, apply, buy online. We deliver. Ram Power Days at Allen Samuels.
Relationships, community, home. Now more than ever, these are the things that we're holding fast to. Home should restore us from today and ready us for tomorrow. It's where stories are told and relationships are forged. Within those walls, memories are made, laughter is shared, and family is gathered around the table. For these reasons, we believe in home, and that right now, there is no better place to be. If you and your family are looking to buy or sell a home, head over to magnoliarealty.com. Magnolia is a proud sponsor of Baylor Athletics.
Now, back to the Sikkim Podcast, presented by your friend in the car business, Allen Samuels, Dodge, Chrysler, Jeep, Ram, Fiat.
Back with us on the Sikkim Podcast. Be sure to subscribe, download the Sikkim Podcast each week, wherever you find your podcast, on Apple, on Spotify. It's all there. It's on the Baylor website, BaylorBears.com. Subscribe and listen each week to the Sikkim Podcast, presented by Allen Samuels, Dodge, Chrysler, Jeep, Ram, Fiat. Continuing with Drew Pittman, Baylor's Associate AD for Event Management and Facilities. And safe to say, going into this school year and this football game, which will be the first of the year this Saturday, you've never had any event management and facilities issues like we have this year.
I think, Mac Rhodes, our athletic director, said it best. And I don't remember when he said this. It's been a month or two ago, but he said this will be a season like none other. And he's absolutely right. It's just been a different experience. It's a different... almost everything about it is different. So we've tried to, just from a consistency standpoint, keep as many things the same that the public sees when they interact with us, either on a weekday or in an event. But there's a fair amount of changes that have had to occur based on the pandemic and the given circumstances.
What would you say are some of the biggest changes that they might notice, whether or not they're coming to the game or they're staying and watching from home?
Well, I mean, I think it'll be hard to miss the capacity of the stadium. That's going to be, really the biggest, difference that you notice visually. We're right at a 25% capacity, kind of in line with our peers in the conference and across the state. So I think all the The A5, the Power 5 schools in the state of Texas are at 25%. So if you're watching it on TV, if you've seen any games the last couple of weeks, that's a pretty similar aspect. We've got some schools in the Big 12 right now, I think Kansas and West Virginia, that have no fans. So we are really excited that we've been able to work with the city of Waco, with our authorities here on campus to have some semblance of a fan base there.
And I have somewhat of a handle on all the things you guys do, in preparation for an event, a big event like a football game. I'm not sure I can even grasp all the things that are on top of that now this year with the COVID.
Sure, and we've, it's been a great partnership with us, with health and wellness here in the athletic department. Kenny Boyd leads that group, and Kenny and Henry Howard, my supervisor, on the COVID task force back in March, and really kind of started that process. And then we've continued it, and to our return to campus for our student athletes and our employees, and now this return to events. That soccer was our first event last Friday, and then we'll have, I think, green and gold volleyball this Friday, and then football on Saturday. And then we'll continue on with the kind of the whole gamut. But yeah, it's been a different experience. We have, I don't know that I ever thought I'd be in a couple or 2 or 3, however many it was, Zoom calls with the mayor of the city of Waco. That just wasn't something, we put in a permit request every year that goes through Parks and Recreation here in the city, and they grant us a permit relative to traffic and traffic control and road closures and all that kind of stuff. And it's just been a little bit different experience, and, a different level of scrutiny, obviously, because of what's going on and the different circumstances. But a little bit of a mixed bag as far as things that we expected, things we didn't expect, just getting ready for the season.
Sanitation has obviously been on the forefront of everyone's mind, and as the 25% of fans who get to come to the game, I'm sure they're thinking about it as well. What are some of the things that you guys are doing in preparation of them coming to McLean?
Sure. So, the stadium itself, especially the indoor areas, which are kind of the more susceptible ones, as we found out so far, are just getting a different level of cleaning and disinfecting. We already really had a robust program, and our contractor, our vendor, Texas Urban Enterprises, that does that kind of work for us. They do really great work, but they've just stepped it up a different level. We're using, some different chemicals, some different processes, especially as it relates to like team areas and stuff like that. We brought in some new technology, as far as electrostatic spraying and UV-C disinfecting and some different processes there. It's, we've added, I think, in the football stadium, 180 points of hand sanitizer dispensing. So we had a number of them already, but we've added those all around the facility. We've got hand washing stations. You used to see those where you saw porta-johns and that kind of stuff outside. So those remain in those places, but they're also now at the gates. They're on the concourse, all over the place. We've done a really big graphic and signage project. So when you go in a restroom, obviously, in an effort to maintain that social distancing that's so important, we may have, different fixtures that aren't available right now to just give everybody a little bit more space. And then obviously you'll see a lot of kind of ground decals, similar to what you see in the grocery store and other retailers and stuff, just when you're in line at a concession stand or getting into the stadium at a gate, to kind of remind you to give everybody just a little bit of extra space.
And anything to make people aware of if they're coming to the game this week or coming at any point this season, and things could adjust over the course of the season also. Anything to make people aware of if they're coming to McLean Stadium?
Yeah, so obviously the governor of the state of Texas has a face coverings policy right now, so a mask or whatever you want to call it. But Baylor has some kind of more specific guidance on that, and so you'll see that on our website. In fact, we just worked on a new graphic that should be up there today. We've got a brand new game day website. So if you go to the BaylorBears.com website, you'll see up there's a link to this specific game day website, which will have some information like that. The other kind of exciting part is just in our screening process. So, we check bags and we use metal detectors and all that stuff for, just to create that safe and secure environment at the stadium. We were able to make some modifications to that with the assistance of our public safety professionals on campus. And so now you won't actually have to put your bag on the table and take anything out or take your cell phone or anything out of your pocket. You'll just hold on to all that and walk through the metal detector. And we've been able to make some modifications there to make it able to do that and kind of make things a little more touchless experience for our fans in that area.
The field obviously will be where everyone's eyes are as they're watching the football game, but that's going to look a little bit different as well. I believe the box has been extended. Not as many people will be on the field. Can you kind of go into detail about that?
Yeah, so the team box by NCAA rule has been extended to the 15-yard lines. So you've got more space there for the teams to be able to spread out and to distance on the sideline. The Big 12 has put some policies in place as far as who can be on the sideline and what the requirements are there to be on the sideline. So we've kind of talked about it in the sense of a field certification program. So really, depending on where you are down there, you have to meet certain standards as far as testing and work function and all that kind of stuff. So you'll see really fewer of everything down there except for football players and coaches, fewer photographers, fewer from the TV crew, fewer from all the different staffs, no recruits right now. Obviously, the NCAA has got a moratorium on football recruiting currently until the end of September. So no recruits there either on the field or at the stadium or even moving up to their seats when the game starts. The band will be there at the game, but will be in the stands the whole time. They won't be able to march on the field pregame or halftime because of some Big 12 regulations. There will be cheerleaders, spirit squads down there, but there will be fewer, just once again to meet those standards for the certification program.
And what about one of the great traditions here at Baylor is the Baylor line, the running of the Baylor line. What's that going to look like this year?
Yeah, so we're excited. We're really excited to be able to continue that tradition. Obviously, I think this is the 50th anniversary of the Baylor line, which is an exciting moment for all of us. We'll have fewer freshman students running. We've been able to limit it right now to 500 per game, which still allows all of our incoming students, all our new students, to run as part of that program. Just spaced out over the home game. So we're excited we got to keep this fifth game, this Houston game, so that we can have more space for them to run. And instead of running and making the tunnel for the team to come out and everything, they'll just run all the way across the field and up through the tunnels to their seats, and then the team will come out after they've cleared the field, just in an effort to keep that social distancing and keep everybody a little bit farther apart.
And I know they typically would huddle in that tunnel. Are they going to have a little bit more room to space out before they make the run?
Yeah, absolutely. We've created more space. We've moved some railings around. If you sit in the berm area, you'll notice we've made a few modifications there just to give them more space to spread out before they run and be able to keep some time there. And then we're opening that. Normally we'd open that gate 2 hours ahead of time to give those kids more time to come in and to queue and to get ready. That gate will open at an hour and a half, just like all the rest of the gates. So they won't be in there quite as long and just a little bit more space for everybody.
All right. Well, thank you so much for, A, taking the time to visit with us, but B, taking all the precautions and making sure that McLean is ready for game day this Saturday as Baylor takes on the University of Houston. We really appreciate you making sure that the game day atmosphere is as normal as it could possibly be during this pandemic. So thank you again for your time and for all that you're doing for us.
Thank you, and look forward to seeing everybody on Saturday.
If you need a trailer, Flat Rock Trailers has got you covered. From light-duty single-axle utility trailers to the Big Tex tandem duals. We also carry a full line of enclosed cargo trailers. Need a motorcycle trailer? We've got them. Need a dump trailer? We've got the largest selection in the state. Oilfield trailers? We carry a full line of Big Tex trailers to handle all your needs. Trailer repairs? We repair all makes and models. We'll even rent you a trailer if you need to use one for a day. Flat Rock Trailers, your #1 source for all your trailer needs. Find us at flatrocktrailers.com.
T&G can, and here's why.
To say my wife and I have a lot to clean is an understatement. So we go to T&G Chemical, where the pros know what cleaning solutions to use and give us detailed instructions on exactly how to use them. We never got that kind of advice from any other stores. And the prices at T&G are great. From general household cleaners to odor control solutions for our pets. We go to T&G Chemical and Supply. That's why.
T&G Chemical and Supply. That's why.
Bentwood Realty is a full-service real estate firm with more than 70 high-achieving agents who desire to make a positive impact in their local communities. Their agents stay actively involved in all buying, selling, and investing real estate transactions to make sure their clients receive the utmost level of service. Established in 2011 by brokers Kim Galvan and Rick Hines, both proud Baylor alumni. Call Bentwood Realty today, 254-300-4800. They're at 601 Lake Air Drive in Waco and BentwoodRealty.com.
Thanks for sticking around. This is a continuation of the Sick'em podcast. I'm Brooke Bednarz, joined by John Morris, the voice of the Bears. And John, we have two very important people that I am thrilled to introduce. We have Seth Russell and Elliot Coffey, two former Baylor football stars. Thanks for joining us here today as we talk about and kind of reveal a new Baylor alumni tailgate show that we're excited to kick off with you two.
Yeah, super excited to be a part of it. Brooke, John, Elliot, look forward to working with you guys and see where it all kind of leads.
Yeah, I'm fired up as well. You said 2 stars. I was like, you got Seth, which is 1 star, and then you got me, who's just happy to be around. And so I'm fired up and excited to be a part of this thing too.
That's any indication of how the show is going to be. I'm super excited to work with you guys.
You guys are superstars in our book. We're looking forward to it. First off, isn't it fun just to get to football? I mean, there have been so many twists and turns and hurdles along the way. Seth, isn't it nice that we've got a game coming up this Saturday?
Yeah, I was really looking forward to last week. Even though La Tech would have been a great game, I mean, I'm even more excited for Houston just because that's where I'm located now. So it seems like it's kind of like a hometown field, both sides. Really excited. I'm a big fan of Dana Holgerson, so that'll be really cool to see how he's able to transfer over, and as well as with the new coaching staff at Baylor. It's going to be a phenomenal. I feel like it's going to be a shootout, as we like to see at Baylor a lot of times. But really like to see how the defense comes into play as well.
What are you guys looking forward to most? Obviously, you guys have been back and around to campus, but to return on a game day, especially after everything that 2020 has been. Elliot, what will that mean to you to be able to come back and kick off the 2020 season with us?
Well, I mean, it's huge. Outside of Baylor, I think the other team that I cheer for in college football is typically U of H because I'm from Houston. And so it'll be good to see them up close and personal. Of course, with everything that 2020 has brought us, some sense of normalcy, I think, is probably the biggest thing that I'm looking for. Waco is unquestionably my second home. And so having a chance to go back and, seeing football and things kind of falling back into place, really the first time in all of 2020, I'm pumped up for it. And I think it's a great opportunity for us to go out there and play a really intense opponent. I mean, we were supposed to play Ole Miss. You think about U of H not really playing second fiddle to that game. And so, huge opportunity to see what Coach Aranda and this coaching staff have been able to do with a really, truncated football season. No spring, no true summer. And so seeing the guys, Charlie and the rest of those single-digit players that I'm excited to see go out there and try to make something of this short season.
Elliot, I'm guessing you guys both kind of dove in and watched a lot of college football or pro football last weekend. Wasn't it fun to have that back and see some of the college games and Big 12 in action for the first time this year last weekend?
Oh, yeah, it was great. Well, I would say it wasn't necessarily great for the Big 12, but it was great for college football in general.
Right.
I'm sitting in my apartment. I've got, on the big screen, I've got one game. I've got my laptop streaming one game, and then I've got my phone streaming another game. And so I'm just geeked out that football season is back. And yeah, I can't wait to actually be a part of that, right? It's a little bit more fun to watch a game when you know that Baylor's in the mix as well.
Well, we're going to be doing the best that we can. The first half of this podcast was with Drew Pittman, and he talked a lot about, just getting McLean Stadium ready. Fortunately, we do get to have 25% capacity, but for everyone else at home, we're kind of the opportunity for them to still have some sort of a game day atmosphere. And that's the goal of this Baylor Alumni Tailgate Show, to provide them that. We're going to be breaking down the game, obviously, but it's going to be on the radio and TV all at the same time. And then John's going to carry us through until kickoff on the radio. How do y'all
feel about being on the show with us? Are you excited about that? Any nerves, pregame nerves, like you maybe used to get before you suited up for a football game?
Well, I guess we'll just have to see when we get there. I'm a kind of last moment type of guy. But I think once things start flowing, get back in the rhythm of things, it's going to be really cool and really exciting. I'm glad that you guys invited me to be a part of this. I think it's really cool and an honor to be on the team, on the show with you guys and really be a part of Baylor and the growth and the stages that it's been through in the past, and really shed light on a lot of things that are going on and how we can improve and add to what Baylor is doing really this year, what they're going to be doing in the future. Especially with all the COVID stuff going on, it's just what are some precautionary things that people are taking, that the staff that the football team is taking, and how we can just continue to bring support however way we can. Whether that's being there, being outside, watching, tweeting, posting, whatever it is. I know that as a player that's been on the field, it's always cool to walk out and see a full stadium, and I could imagine the feeling of walking out and only seeing 25%. It makes you feel like you're having a bad couple of years or something like that, whenever that amount of fans show up. But we all know that it's certain reasons, certain precautions, and I'm really excited to see how really all of college football responds to first off the electronic whistles, which I think is really interesting, as well as the fan number.
What about you, Elliot?
Yeah, I'm with Seth. There's parts of the game that I'm excited to see kind of how it plays out. But as far as being a part of the show, I mean, this is an opportunity. When I got the phone call, I was pumped up. I've always wanted to be a part of a pregame experience. Now that I'm far beyond my years of playing, and so to be embedded in the game day experience, to have the full faith and support of Baylor and the Alumni Association really sponsoring this deal for us is huge, right? Because it gives us the resources and gives us the legs to really give this show the future that it deserves. And so I'm excited to be out there. I know there's so many people, that have reached out to me since we had that press release go out saying that, hey, look, we're going to be on the show and these are the names. And so that's one side of it that's exciting. But additionally, you got people that are just excited to be a part of Baylor football. And so to be a voice and somebody that's going to be on the front side of that thing is just, super exciting for me.
You guys, when you were here, when you were in school, you were go-to interviews because you did so well, you spoke so well, and we'd always get a good soundbite from you. And now that has sort of translated, or you've transcended that, and now in front of the camera and on the air with us. Elliot, you've done that for the last few years, part of our post-game fan forum, and done a great job there. So expanding that role a little bit. It's going to be new for Seth. Elliot, what would you say to Seth about being on camera and being a TV star?
The quick word of advice: talk a little bit slower than you think you need to.
There you go.
Because you'll get up there and you'll just, the adrenaline is pumping and you get that reaction to it and you're doing 1,000 miles. But yeah, take your time, find your voice. Everybody's going to love you, man. Be you, and you're going to crush it.
I appreciate that.
Seth, any concerns about doing this, or are you pretty calm and confident?
No, like I said, I'm just a shoot from the hip type of guy. I'll come in and try to be prepared somewhat, so I'm not seem like I'm a novice at this or anything. But I think I've had some good experiences in the past with speaking to the media and trying to keep things level and even keel. And but I think it'll be really cool. I'm excited for it. It'll be a great opportunity, just as Elliot said, to be a part of Baylor football again and to play some form of role and positivity and adding to that.
Sounds like, John, you whipped him into shape and trained him up pretty well while they were here.
Oh, they're naturals. Believe me, they're naturals. I don't take any credit for that.
Relationships, community, home. Now more than ever, these are the things that we're holding fast to. Home should restore us from today and ready us for tomorrow. It's where stories are told and relationships are forged. Within those walls, memories are made, laughter is shared, and family is gathered around the table. For these reasons, we believe in home, and that right now there is no better place to be. If you and your family are looking to buy or sell a home, head over to MagnoliaRealty.com. Magnolia is a proud sponsor of Baylor Athletics.
I hate my job, but I don't mind getting up in the morning. I dread each day, but I can't wait to get out of bed. You ask me why, and what I'll say to you is true. Well, you can get breakfast tacos at Rudy's Barbecue. Scrambled eggs and brisket, they ain't fooling around. Sausage wrap, son, they're the best in town. Barbecue for breakfast, yes, it's true. Put a smile on your morning at Rudy's Barbecue. Next in line.
You're listening to the Sick'em Podcast, a production of Baylor Athletics. Here again are Brooke Bednarz and John Morris.
Well, obviously, the football programs, both Houston and Baylor, have a quick turnaround to get prepared for this matchup. We ourselves kind of had an adjustment, preparing for Law Tech for the show, now making the adjustment for Houston. But how do you guys both being former players, would that be walk us through kind of the mindset a little bit on what it would be like to have only a week of sudden preparation as you guys dive into not only a game, but the season opener? Elliot?
I think –
or Seth, go ahead.
I think it's just like any other game. Obviously you have some drawbacks with it being the first game of the season. There's going to be hopefully not a lot of communication errors, which I think are expected, as you can see with all the other teams kind of going on. But they've had the whole summer, quote unquote, to prepare for that first game. But I think, Houston and Baylor are in the same boat. So I don't think there's any disadvantage any way that you look at it. But then again, you just treat it as a season. I mean, you go in 1 week, prepare for the team, win or lose, go back and watch film on Sunday and prepare for the next week. So I think it's just getting them, into that game form or season form to where, it's just like any other game, just a little bit in a different circumstance, but still very similar.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, the tricky thing, and Seth is right, you got to treat it like any other game. But the tricky thing here with this coaching staff is this is Coach Aranda's first time as a head coach. And so trying to get the operational piece of what does game day look like? When do we get the guys in? When do we get the guys out? That's going to be a little bit more difficult. Now, the one advantage that we do have over U of H in this situation is that U of H doesn't know if they need to watch film on Baylor, watch film on LSU, watch film on Louisiana Lafayette. They've got all these, or even North Carolina, right? Mm-hmm. And so you've got all these different films that they've got to watch. They're probably the ones that are at the disadvantage for us. You're returning a starter at quarterback, you're returning a starter at running back for U of H. And so for us, we just go on and we throw on that film in the last 7 games of last year, and you just pound it as much as you can. For the QCs and the grad assistants, that's what's really going to be tough for, because those guys are probably working around the clock right now trying to get all that film broken down.
Hey, for me, it's fun to have this matchup. It's an old Southwest Conference matchup. You guys obviously played in the Big 12 beyond the Southwest Conference. But both of you have ties to Houston, as you mentioned earlier. Does that add a little extra juice, Seth, to this matchup, Baylor and U of H? Absolutely.
I consider Houston home now, and so being a part of that, and whenever quick backstory, when Holgerson joined U of H, I tried with Holgerson there, I tried to be a GA or something because I was living down in the medical center area. Wasn't quite sure what I wanted to do, and so I just reached out to him. And unfortunately, with the new transition and everything, budgets were pretty tight on that side. And but got to speak with them. I mean, I respect those guys a lot, and being a part of Houston now is being through the hurricane and just really seeing the community and how it works together is really cool. And I think if they had the opportunity, they would definitely show out at the stadium if they had the opportunity to.
Yeah, and I agree. I mean, U of H and Baylor are two football programs that have had a ton of success, over the last 10 or so years. And so we're not really scheduling each other typically, just because we're going to go find somebody else to kind of get in that way. And so, same way as Seth, growing up in Houston, spending time in Houston, the hurricane, if nothing else, brought people together, down there. And so, like I said, when U of H isn't playing Baylor, I'm cheering for U of H. And so, it'll be a little bit of a, well, I'll tell you what, I have no qualms cheering against U of H when it's Baylor, but typically, it's a game where I'm cheering for U of H. And so I'm excited to see it. It's not a game that I expected to see on the schedule anytime soon. And so it's a little bit different than what we planned, but yeah, I think it'll be a great game. As a Houston guy, it's a unique thing for us to see.
You guys have both mentioned a little bit about where home is now for you, where you're from. I'm sure we will have plenty of time during the show, 2 hours before kickoff at 9 a.m. to discuss all the X's and O's and things about Baylor football and Houston and everything like that. But I think our podcast listeners would love to hear a little bit about what you guys have been doing since your time at Baylor and playing football for the Bears. So we'll kind of walk us through, we'll go back to you, Seth. You talked a little bit about, wanting to be a GA and that not working out. What are you doing now? And you're still in Houston? Just kind of walk us through what your life looks like post Baylor.
Yeah, absolutely. I think Ellie and I have a very similar profession. So it'll be kind of cool to see his side of it as well. But yeah, so moved down to Houston about 3 years ago after all the NFL stuff didn't work out, fortunately. So moved down here with my wife, Ashley, and joined Texas Children's for a few years, worked there and was loving it, but it was a little bit too slow pace. Wasn't feeling it as much. I mean, I had a great opportunity there, amazing organization with what they do, and kind of stumbled upon was really searching myself on what do I want to do, how do I want to help people, how do I want to give back, what are some ways, and turns out that Northwestern Mutual was a company that was open. My brother works for Northwestern Mutual. He's been there for about 6 years now. I was a client of Northwestern before I actually joined on, so I kind of got to see both sides, which is pretty interesting. But just had a calling for giving back, whatever that was being a therapist, during the call, or just a shoulder to cry on, or just a sounding board, or gathering the burden of the financial freedoms of people's lives. And I think it's really cool to be a part of something that's much bigger than myself, giving back to people. I mean, hear all the time of financial advisors change people's lives, and just having those connections, I think, are really cool in a sense of what I'm doing. I'm not doing it for myself. It's more for everybody I connect with is going to be it's make them a relationship. That's what I'm building my business off of, is strictly relationships. And it's been really neat, really eye-opening to see, especially during COVID. I mean, this has been some of the toughest times in really the economy, obviously. And you talk to people who, have both of the spouses have lost their jobs and they're having to sell their house. And it's just like, it's very heartbreaking in a sense of, how can I be a voice, a light in the storm, or whatever that may look like, and see both sides. You have businesses that are booming and never seen this much production in the past, and then you have the complete opposite. And I'm sure Elliot can speak for that as well. So yeah, I'm doing financial advising. Northwestern Mutual have been really fun, really encouraging. I feel like I'm going to be doing this for a really long time. So it's been really a really blessing to have this opportunity.
Before we go to Elliot, I do want to ask you, Seth, do you feel as though your time as a football player has developed you into the man to be that person for those people? You mentioned wearing a lot of different hats with what you do now. Can you kind of pull from your time as an athlete and use that today?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, no question. There's going through with what Baylor's been through, and just with the different ups and downs, and really seeing it through and being a part of the program, a part of the university, part of the country, the fan base, having those experiences, whether that's, changing the type of mentality, whether it's, going and working out or, pounding the weights or hitting sprints. Instead of hitting sprints, it's, studying, making sure that I can do whatever I can do, knowledge wise to give back to the people I'm working with so that they have the best experience, so that they're able to have peace of mind when going into, the scares of being the financial life, people that run into. But yeah, I know there's been everything that I've learned from playing, from watching, being on the sideline, injuries, everything that's led up to this point has really just given me, another reason to do this. And really seeing both sides has been really cool. And so this morning, a quick story. So I was scrolling through Facebook and saw a video of, a young lady or a young girl in college, broke her neck in a car accident, and she's paralyzed from the waist down. And I keep thinking to myself, it was just that really, it kind of brought me back down to life of saying, why am I doing this? Why am I here? Why do I have this opportunity? I should be in a wheelchair. There's no reason why I shouldn't be, but for some reason, God gave me this opportunity to do this. And I'm going to do it to the best that I can, that God's given me the ability to, with the people around me, and try to make an impact as best I can.
That's wonderful. Thanks for sharing that.
Yeah, thank you.
Elliot, what about you? What have you been up to since the good old days at Baylor?
Yeah, really similar story to Seth. So, tinkered around with football for 2 years. And then in 2014, also joined up with Northwestern Mutual in Houston. I wasn't in North Houston, but I was actually down in the Galleria off of, what is it? Riverway. That's what it was, down Riverway. And so there was a huge Baylor influence out of that office. And so ended up working down there. A phenomenal company, top level training as far as a place to land coming out of football. I mean, it doesn't get any better than that. And so was with them for a while, and then actually jumped around to a couple different firms in Houston. And then about a year ago, moved up to Dallas. And so I live, we're talking about U of H and having a hometown team. I live a mile south of SMU. And so I'm in Dallas. I'm in Pony Country, whatever you want to call it now, working for Fisher Investments. And so Fisher and Northwestern Mutual kind of got a lot in common. So Northwestern Mutual, I think, is the largest mutual owned, non-publicly traded insurance company in the country. Yeah. Right. Yeah. And so, similarly, Fisher is the largest RIA, so registered investment advisor in the country, right? So not publicly traded, owned in-house. And so a lot of similarities between the two. Fisher, more so on the equity side than Northwestern Mutual, but really two phenomenal companies and had a lot in common. And that's ultimately why I decided to work with them. And so been doing that kind of alongside what's paralleled my, financial job is being in TV and radio too. And so got my first start in 2014. Same time I was with Northwestern Mutual. Tiffany Blackman, who at the time was working with KWTX in Waco, had left and went to Comcast Sports in Houston. And so this was right before Comcast Sports went under and it moved over to AT&T. And they called me up and were like, hey, look, we got a TV show. It's probably going to go under in about 2 to 3 months, but we got a spot. If you think you can go on camera, you can try this out. And so I went and bombed on camera for 3 months and kind of got my first foray into TV. And so, along with that and segued into, doing the TV and radio. So I did TV, I did the pregame show for a little while. And then, John and Derek and those guys kind of pulled me over to do radio. And so have done those side to side. Have done my best to develop, but, always hiccups along the way. But it's been a pretty fun ride. And, if you're ever curious about what I'm doing, I post a ton on social media, so you can always kind of poke your head in there and see what I'm doing.
That's great. We're glad both your employers, your full-time employers, give you enough time to mess around with us. We really appreciate that. What do you think, given 2020, no spring practice, coaching change at Baylor, long on-ramp to get to this season opener, now an opponent that just kind of comes out of the blue. Elliot, what do you think, how good, how clean can the performance be for Coach Aranda and the Bears this Saturday?
I think you're working off of a bell curve right here with what clean looks like, right? One of the things Coach Aranda keeps saying is he's, look, we're going to have hiccups along the way. You don't want those hiccups to be X's and O's kind of stuff, or that we're trying to over scheme or over game plan. He's going to let his guys go out there and play. And so what I think you're going to look for is just fundamental, playing hat in hands, offensive line, getting a push defensively, making sure you're in the right position and you're playing hard, right? Wrap up, tackle, drive your feet through. I think that's really all you can ask for at this point.
Seth, what do you think?
Yeah, I guess just to piggyback off that, the offensive side is going to be. I'm looking forward to it. It's going to be exciting. I know those guys are probably been running probably pretty hard lately, especially with the up tempo. I'm not sure if any of those guys ever were a part of Brile's system, which could be a positive or a negative, whatever you may look at. But it's really going to be cool to see the up tempo again. Running and gunning, I guess to say, getting guys up, lining. But yeah, there probably will be some communication errors. That's just part of the game, first game of the year. I don't know if they're going to try to go super fast, if they're going to try to be conservative, make sure each play is very thought out. Details are always important. Because really it comes down to, whoever turns the ball over the least will more than likely win the game. And so the Baylor's defense has done a great job of getting the ball, turnover wise. It's going to be really exciting to see those guys fly around and play some good football.
I think you said it best. It's going to be very exciting to finally have fans in the stands, 25% or not, have football being played, the Baylor Bears going out there. But I'm also very excited to get to host a show with you guys and kick off the 2020 season just 2 short hours before the actual game. But before then, I do want to thank you for your time visiting with us today. This has been a great little preview of what is to come. And I know that John and I are super excited to get things going with you guys Saturday morning at 9. So thanks again.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah, thank y'all.
Hey, we appreciate it. Look forward to Saturday. Thanks very much. Y'all are going to do great. And that'll wrap up this week's Sikkim podcast. Thanks for being with us. Appreciate Drew Pittman, who was on with us the first part of the podcast. And thanks to Elliot Coffey and Seth Russell. For Brooke Bednarz, I'm John Morris, and that's this week's Sikkim podcast.
You've been listening to the Sikkim Podcast, presented by your friend in the car business, Alan Samuels Dodge Chrysler Jeep Ram Fiat in Waco. Online at AlanSamuelsDCJ.com. The Sikkim Podcast has been a production of Baylor Athletics.